My distinct privilege to welcome the Chancellor of the University of Denver, Dr. Robert Coombe, to deliver the Convocation address. Chancellor Coombe.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Let me begin by offering my congratulations to the honorees today, the folks who are receiving the awards among our faculty and staff. I have to say that it is a particularly inspiring group of people that we are honoring today, and I want to offer my personal congratulations to all of them. The last few months have really been busy. Ordinarily, when I speak at Convocation, it feels like the beginning of the year, right? The leaves are just starting to fall. We're all really in the middle of the fall quarter classes and the like, but I must tell you that it feels as though we've been at this for a few months now already. There have been a few things happening on campus. Typically, I speak with you about the current state of the university, and I will do so again this afternoon, but I intend to be brief there because I want to concentrate my remarks on the future and on some of the challenges we face over the course of the next 5 to 10 years as a university. First, the current state of the university. Last year was another very good one for DU. In any dimension that one can really think of. We finished the year with another really quite solid operating margin. Our endowment continued to go up and reached a high of about $380 million. That's about where it is now. That's a little past 1 year's annual operating expenditure, so that's a good hallmark for us. That continues to go up. Largely on the basis of new gifts. We've done reasonably well with investments, but it's really been driven by new gifts of late. We are very solid with regard to working capital, and I don't know that this is well understood, that in addition to that $380 million endowment that we have out there that releases about 4.5% for our operations each year, that we also have cash reserves that are in things like reserve funds, gain share funds, things of that nature that we use as working capital that amount to nearly $250 million as well. Of course, that goes up and down with revenues coming in and expenditures going out, but it contributes substantially to the overall position of the university. Best of all, though, I think we all are aware that without question, we have the very best students, the very best faculty, the very best staff that this institution has ever enjoyed. And I am privileged indeed to be chancellor at this very particular, very auspicious time in our history. Without question, when it comes to quality and value that we offer to our students and our world, we're at the peak of our game. This past year, we raised a total of $51 million in new gifts and new commitments. That was a really very good year. Of course, we've been at this for a few years now in the Ascend campaign, had a couple of really good years, and then 2008 came along and the economy crashed, and it came down some, but we've been climbing back up. And that figure represents the 4th year in a row of improvements in fundraising for the university. And I want to offer my congratulations and thank you to the staff of University Advancement and to all of the advancement staffs in the units. Thank you so much for what was really a very good, a very productive year. The Ascend campaign at this moment stands at about $346 million. With the best part of 2 years to go. Actually, that figure does not include 2 new major gifts that are committed but not yet documented at this point. I think we have an excellent chance to reach $400 million in the Ascend campaign by the close of this particular year, with another year yet to go. Facilities are tremendous. The campus is glorious, of course. The Academic Commons building that we all walk by every day will be finished just after the first of the calendar year, and it is going to be an extraordinary facility. for our students, for our faculty, for our staff, for all of us here, really the center of intellectual life on campus. It's such a great pleasure to see this happening at last after, 10 or more years of work, planning, fundraising, all of that. The debate was an enormous, enormous success by virtually any measure. First of all, it absolutely galvanized the campus. For those of us who were present here that day, the Debate Fest was an extraordinary thing. Imagine 6,500 people, that's what we imagined the crowd was at Debate Fest on the central campus green, all enjoying themselves and celebrating the university that we are today. It resulted in absolutely immense exposure and visibility for the university. And of course, these things can be quantified. All of the dust is not settled yet, but our folks in marketing and communications have gauged what the value of the media exposure was. This can be done in fairly quantitative ways these days, and we've done this using a third-party firm. And I can tell you, just on the basis of what appeared verbally on television and on the web, print media alone, that the media value, the equivalent dollar value of the media exposure from the debate was over $34 million for the university. That does not include a lot of web coverage that we have a lot of data on as well, because it's hard to quantify the value of things that appear on the web these days still. I want to thank all of the faculty and staff members who participated for many, many months in developing the first presidential debate at the University of Denver. It was a tremendous, tremendous success that is going to have an impact on the university for decades and decades to come. I have one piece of negative news for you, and that's about enrollments. Graduate enrollments overall are up by headcount measures beyond budget, but there has been great volatility. Some units are way up, some units are way down, and that is the time that we're living in. For undergraduates, in spite of an applicant pool of 15,000, we had a shortfall of 38 new undergraduates this year, first-year undergraduates. And there are two reasons for that. One of them is that this is the first year we've required all of our international students to pass the English language exam in the English Language Center, and 22 of them did not pass. All but one of them is in the ELC at this point, but that has an impact on us. And we also had an unusual number of students deferring their admission for another year, 30 more than we expected, and those are really the two reasons. At present, at this moment, I can tell you that applications for the fall class of this coming fall, that we are now 2 weeks out from the early admissions deadline. Applications are up by 58% over last year. That is right, 58% over last year, which produced 15,000. But we know that the real challenge is not the number of applicants or the number of students. We can fill up the classes. It's our ability to fill them with the students that we really want to recruit. The people with extraordinary talent, the people of extraordinary diversity that make the kind of intellectual contributions to this university that are required if we are to continue to advance. That is the real challenge for the coming years. So it was a good year, and we're in good shape. But let me turn now to some of the major challenges for the university over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, as I see them. As we look ahead to the next decade or so, our objectives are clear. Ever-increasing quality, ever-increasing value, ever-increasing impact as we move through an era of unprecedented change in higher education. While we are positioned very well to address these kinds of goals in that world, there are some things that are key. First, We are seeing a long-term shift in the demographics among our prospective students out there. The average incomes of families from which those students will come and their ability to afford a high-quality private university education is going to diminish substantially relative to their predecessors. And we also already see that beginning. There is the beginning of a tuition affordability gap for our students that will unquestionably widen over the course of the next years. We've mitigated that so far by increasing institutional financial aid, but that can't continue indefinitely. This means that it's going to be more challenging to recruit and retain high-capability students than ever before. And tuition simply cannot continue to rise at the rates of past years. Second, the operating model for traditional higher education, the model within which we've thrived for all of these years, is simply not sustainable over the long run. DU, like all but a few colleges and universities, those with multiple billion-dollar endowments out of a total of 4,500 in the United States, DU and all the others are tuition-driven. And that means that the bulk of our tuition, the bulk of our revenue comes from net tuition paid for by our students. For us right now, that's about 68% of our revenue. But the remainder of the revenue in our budget also has costs and expenditures associated with it that sort of balance out. So tuition drives compensation, compensation drives tuition. And that's what a tuition-driven institution is. Right now, if we were to increase base compensation by 2.5%, for example, that would require a 2.1% increase in net tuition. And as I've said, tuition can't go up much more. How then do we continue to invest in quality without changing the fundamental nature of the university over the course of the next decade or so? Let me offer three approaches. First is to build capacity. We are not yet at full capacity for a number of reasons. One example is the summer quarter. We typically have around 4,500 students here in the summer quarter relative to 12,500 in the fall, winter, and spring. And that's just tradition in higher education. Our university, like every other, is going to have to move to more of a year-round operating model. That's just capacity. And we have a competitive advantage in doing that because we are on the quarter system. We have a single quarter to build up rather than redeveloping the entire curriculum for the entire year all over again. Another part of capacity building is customization and flexibility. We'd like to optimize the rate at which our students proceed through their degree programs, and some of them are accelerating already. We see that our students are finishing much earlier. Our graduation rates have gone up 10 points in the last 7-8 years or so. We're now at about a 78% graduation rate, and that will surely go past 80% for the students that we have here now. If we can optimize the rates at which they pass through the university, that means we can add more students, add more revenue as well, while maintaining the total number that we have. A second approach of equal, if not greater importance, is to build much greater pools of financial aid through fundraising. And we've already been doing that with great success in the Ascend campaign. The total number of scholarship funds that we've been able to raise is way past 100 million. But some of you are aware of the matching campaign that we've had in the last 3 years, where the university set aside a total of $35 million from operating funds, 25 for undergraduate pool for financial aid, 10 for a graduate pool for financial aid, and put them out there for donors to match. I'm happy to report that this year we exhausted all of those funds. All of that $35 million has been matched by donations to produce $70 million in scholarship and financial aid that goes directly into the endowment. We need to do much more of that in the coming years. Third, we must ultimately improve productivity, either in a lower cost per degree or a higher value per degree that gives rise to greater price elasticity. Some of that may come about through creative uses of technology. And technology is the third great issue I want to talk about out there. It's likely to contribute to dramatic changes in the manner in which we approach our business over the next several years. We've all read about all kinds of things that have to do with the movement of technology. A lot has been written about MOOCs, for example, massively open online courses that we hear about with, numbers of students in excess of 100,000 or so. Right now, I think that is largely about branding and bandwagon, because there really isn't a business model associated with it, but there will be at some point. There are businesses, revenue streams associated with that are building around the edges that have to do with testing centers and for-profit businesses that bundle these things and the like. All of that really, I think, is foretelling a kind of commoditization of parts of the curriculum that is likely to be there. I personally think that commoditization is likely to happen on the front end of the undergraduate curriculum in particular. All of the introductory sort of courses that we teach to large classes now, like all of the other universities and colleges out there. I do think that's going to get commoditized. Right now we're working hard on blended learning. Those are courses, as you know well, that are a combination of online and face-to-face instruction. And buried within them are things like flipped classrooms and the like. There's a lot of data that suggests that that's the optimized learning model, at least for the moment. You may know that we have a major project going on now that has to do with blended learning courses in the sciences and mathematics. That is a significant project for us. I want to take this time to thank all of the faculty members and staff members that are working so hard on those projects right now. It's very important for the universities. Ultimately, I think we'll see the growth of adaptive learning platforms that really do interact on a very personalized and customized way with individual students, and that will likely require lesser amounts of faculty time. Those are not out there yet, except for in a handful of examples, but they are surely coming. All of this, I think, portends a future for us in which our value proposition shifts, in which master's degrees become the credential of choice for the caliber of students that we are admitting to the University of Denver. And we may see a growth in the number of graduate students relative to the number of undergraduate students here, while technology mediates the front end of the undergraduate experience, makes it more customized, more flexible, such that students can zip through it if they want to, hopefully in a more effective, but also much more financially affordable way. There are a lot of ways to go. Another item that's of great importance is that STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics disciplines, are going to play a very large and growing role in the near-term future. Already, we know that our undergraduate applicants have large and growing applicant pools, have large and growing numbers of students with an interest in those disciplines. This year alone, this past year, the applicant pool of 15,000 students for this first-year class, nearly 30% indicated an interest in engineering or the sciences at DU. And in those disciplines, I think we're very good. We have extraordinary people, but we're also very small and not as competitive as we are in other areas of the university. What we find among those big applicant pools right now is lower yields of students. A much smaller percentage of applicants to DU in those STEM fields actually matriculate here. And I think that's because of the scale of our operation, where we have limited facilities, some of which are of very low quality. So we have an initiative going in engineering and computer science. That is an area of critical investment for us in the coming years. We also have an initiative going in our Institute for the Study of Aging, which is an umbrella idea over the sciences and the biomedical part of engineering that incorporates a number of things that we do well in the social sciences and even in the professional schools. And of course, we continue to investigate the viability of a medical school at the University of Denver as well. Since I talked with you last, our concept and models are much, much more refined. And I can tell you that the idea is still under consideration, and actively so. Finally, diversity and inclusion are going to become key factors in building a deep intellectual culture that attracts talented people from all over the country and all over the world. We already know, for example, that among the pools of college-age students, and frankly those that are going to graduate school in the coming decade, that the principal areas of growth are among students and families of color, domestic minority communities, and a very broad constituency among the full socioeconomic spectrum. The trends for us are good there. For undergraduates, for example, the last class that we admitted, the class that came in this fall, was 20%, made up of 20% domestic minority students and 9% international students. And we work very hard to keep the doors as wide open as we can to the broadest possible spectrum of socioeconomic status among our students and their family. Inclusion is the key to reaping the benefits of diversity. And we have a lot of work to do there at the university, but we are working hard. Financial aid is one of the keys for us as well, just as I mentioned it earlier. We've got to raise a lot more money. We've got to use the dollars that we have wisely and in a focused way. So let me sum up just a bit. First, keep in mind, we are doing extremely well as a university. We continue to have tremendous momentum, but we do so within the boundaries of the traditional models for higher education, and those boundaries are moving very, very rapidly. We're on the cusp of a new world. Much of what we know, much of the world in which we've made our professional lives will change over the next few years. Over those same years, we're going to face challenges to our operating model and its finances. And so we must aggressively embrace change. We must aggressively embrace change. And this is not going to be easy. And it will surely involve some sacrifices. I hope that we can approach the coming years as a community committed to the future of the university, a future far beyond our own generation. There are surely some things that will not change. Our commitment to ever-increasing quality, ever-increasing value, ever-increasing impact, and our commitment to be a great private university dedicated to the public good. The good news is that as we face these challenges, we are far better off than all but a handful of those other 4,500 colleges and universities in the United States. The hard work that we've all put in over the course of the past 25 years and more has reaped great rewards and has created a platform from which we can reach for the future. But reach we must. Times of great change are also times of extraordinary opportunity. And if there is one thing that is characteristic of our university, is that we seize opportunities. And in the course of the next decade, they are going to be multifold. We can't squander them. We've got to move. Thank you so much for all that you do for the University of Denver.